That is not the way we function today in this world. That it's a new world, it's a brave new world. There are huge amounts of opportunities, and yet at the same time, if you are not willing to change, if you're not willing to adopt new technologies and new methodologies, then I'm afraid we're going to perish. And we better accept that. There are no gray areas. In the old days, the economy was trending along, and so even if you weren't top of your game, you could survive with a very thin bottom line. But today, there is a huge division of fallouts. You either succeed or you fail. And if you fail, then you close shop. And you have to start from all over again. And when you say start from all over again, the only way to survive times like this is to rethink who you are and what your approach to life and your job is. Because it's no different from everyday life. It's all about anticipation. So whenever you tick boxes, your job starts after you finish ticking boxes, because there's a friend sitting on your shoulder and his name is Murphy, and his law, which you all learn in B school, is if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. Rest assured, it's much more likely to go wrong than to go right. So I don't know how we've been surviving so far on hoping for the best, because we have. There are very few training programs and companies that actually train from top to bottom an attitude of anticipation. What can possibly go wrong? And if it does go wrong, does it catch you flat-footed? And does it cost you a lot of money to correct it? Or are you nimble enough to not have anticipated exactly what goes wrong, but to have anticipated that something can go wrong, and therefore you have a plan B, you have a plan C, you have a plan D, but basically you're thinking on your feet. Now, thinking on your feet seems to be just a term which we use and throw around. The fact is that thinking on your feet means that you're extremely flexible, that you're extremely aggressive, and that you have a peripheral vision which is 360 degrees. Because you have to be able to anticipate what's coming from the back of your head, not just from the front of your head. Because what is possibly going to come from the front of your head is a very small cone of that 360 degrees. Most of the 360 degrees are from the corners of your eyes. And if you notice in life, everything that you have anticipated to date and been on top of has never come directly at you. It's always come from the side. And therefore, your peripheral vision is what keeps you alive and keeps you going, and not your direct sight. Your direct sight is to be able to approach and solve problems. Now, my suggestion to all of us who are performing a duty, we are performing a job, we are offering a service. At times like this, where it's a great leveler, everybody's been leveled. Okay, we've been leveled to the degree that our consumers are suffering even more than we are. Our workers are suffering, and in anticipation of the fact that any day they might get a pink slip. And the fact is that when you turn around and tell them to take a salary cut, there is enormous amounts of resistance, attrition, and anger to that suggestion. Companies that run like a family, we go back to family issues, are the companies that will survive and will carry the employees. Always remember, when your employees decide to leave you, they might not leave you at this stage because they won't get another job, but when things get better, your best people will leave you first because they feel that you don't have their back. Now, how do you have their back when you are actually bleeding and you want them to take, say, a salary cut, which you will then reassure them that you will make it up in the next 2 years? It's not a permanent salary cut, it's a loan back to the company. Okay. How do you place this? Are you as a company going to take a salary cut from top to bottom? Always remember this, that a guy who's earning 10,000 rupees a month requires that 10,000 rupees a month to put food on the family's table. And therefore you can't turn around and give him 5,000 rupees. But a guy who's taking 50,000 rupees or 60,000 rupees, you can ask him to take a salary cut of up to 25,000 rupees because he can still put food on the table. And your priority with your employees, especially right now, for their loyalty, first thing is employee loyalty, is to turn around and say, what can you afford? How much can you loan back to the company for a couple of months so that in a deferred manner, we can pay it back to you over a period of a year, 2 years, whatever it takes. So that you at least know that you have their loyalties for that particular period of time, especially your best people. So if you look at your own companies, you will realize that 40% of your people actually carry your company. 60% are dependent on that 40%. And it's an observation which you might not like, but the fact is that 40%, very few are top management. The top management are the largest burdens to a company under stress because you pay them a hell of a lot of money for experience and for wisdom and for grey hair. But you don't pay them money to be flexible, to be aggressive, to be extremely, not being risk averse. Today, as a business, especially businesses which are bankers, businesses that are insurance companies, businesses that deal with services which involve money, are extremely risk averse. We have to re-look at and revisit how risk averse you are. So my suggestion to you is twofold. The younger your employees, the more tech savvy they are. The older the employees, they have to learn tech because they weren't born with it. Okay? But they have the advantage of hindsight. They've been through the grind. They know intuitively that we are going wrong or we're going right. But they also have a lot to lose because they're in senior management places. So if they lose their jobs, they have a hell of a lot to lose. If a youngster loses his job, he can always find another one, especially if he's good at what he does. So the risk factor is far greater among young people than among older people and therefore senior management, because they have to hold on to their chairs at whatever cost it takes. Now in the old days, and I'm talking about before Corona, which is BC, and after Corona, which is AC. Okay, so we are now going to refer to our economic field or minefield as BC and AC. So BC was where you did what was minimal to hold your job. You didn't stick your head above the radar. You did not target yourself by making decisions which were controversial. You did not stick your neck out by saying that I feel that this is going to fly even though it's high risk, and that we must do what we have to do. Now, what happens here is that young people are always very aggressive about risk. They say, come on, let's take the risk. Old people, on the other hand, are very risk averse, the older management. So we have to use a combination of the two. And therefore, I believe that management-wise, we need to form partnerships and mentorships and not managers. You cannot be a manager when you're actually a dinosaur. And when I say you're a dinosaur, what I mean is that today you are conducting your business from home. You're conducting this talk from home or from wherever you are. And that wasn't possible with such ease and clarity 10, 15 years ago. So I can't put on the computer and log on to Zoom. I've had my son to do it for me. Now, the fact is that as long as I acknowledge that I need the son and therefore I'm not totally independent because I need him to do the tech part of it. And I can turn on and give you my hindsight and my experience with Murphy, then we're fine. So I have a partnership with my children. And we agree to disagree all the time. We fight, we disagree about politics, we disagree about economics, we disagree about everything. And what they turn on and tell me is that, Dad, you are only talking from opinion. You do not know the facts. We know the facts because we are on internet. You're on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is the domain of false news. And if you really want to follow WhatsApp up, ask the experts. If you want to know about medicine, talk to the doctors. If you know about science, talk to the scientists. If you want to know about technology, talk to the technicians. Why are you listening to hearsay from WhatsApp that has been passed on to you and think that that's gospel? It isn't. It is huge amounts of disinformation. Now, we are a product of what we read is what we believe. And when we read it and we think that, oh, hello, this sounds a little absurd, but at the same time, it sounds interesting. Somebody put it out there. So there must be some element of truth in it. Just before this talk, we were having a huge argument about whether China has actually gained from the what do you call virus, or whether they've actually lost out. And according to my son, they are this economy that has been hit the hardest after the US. And in my belief is that whatever it might be, they still had the reserves to be able to buy out all the shares of all the people who had invested in their companies in their country. So now they're largest shareholders of the companies that were usually international companies, and so they have access to all the technology. Now, it's a moot question, okay? But there is an argument that is going on, and he has not still shown me facts about whether there's a correlation between the economy collapsing and the stock market collapsing. And he believes that there is not necessarily a correlation. It is not a law. Now, having said that, so what do we do now as senior managers, as people who are looking down? Is the first lesson that starts today. You're sitting at home. You have children who are between 20 and 25 years old, who are also sitting at home with you. Do you get on their backs? Or do you try and learn from them, and vice versa? Do we engage in dialogue, or do we engage in accusation? Now, it starts from there. Do you realize that your children probably know more tech than you do? And the future is tech. So, can I make a suggestion? Is that all senior management above the age of 40 compulsorily goes back to school to learn tech. Now, being able to function, basically send emails, get onto Zoom, Yevo and all, is not tech. Tech is how to make the maximum use of this piece of equipment that's in your hand, which is your Android cell phone or your advanced cell phone. It has more computing technology than NASA had to put the first man on the moon. Are we using it to its full potential? I don't think so. I think we're just using it as a function. We're not using it as a tool which is going to teach you things, which is going to constantly make you evolve as a management human being. It's not going to make you evolve as a manager. You think that management is done by the seat of your pants. Yes. Management is a lot of intuition, but with fact, with educating yourself with what is and what is not and what is false news. And if we become victims of false news or rumor mongering or what we think is right without cross-checking the facts to know whether they are right or not, then we are wrong. We are wrong because then it's a lottery. Then it's tukkebazi. And therefore, Murphy will always strike whenever you are unsure. whenever you haven't completely looked at every possibility of what can go wrong, even then he strikes. But when you are already trained to anticipate a problem, your reaction time is much faster. You are there to correct that anomaly before it becomes a crisis. And that is what real management is all about today. So I'm recommending that we do a partnership and a mentorship, that we change the nomenclature of how we run our companies by saying we are managers and we manage the young people in our company and we manage our company. I don't think that's true anymore. You are not in a position to manage anybody who knows more about technology than you do, because he can run circles around you and he can confuse the hell out of you by saying that this is false news, this is a fact, that you're talking rubbish, like my children do to me all the time. So we need a partnership. We need a working partnership where a senior manager gets into a partnership with his junior person, who then teaches him how to be not risk averse, how to base everything on fact, how to go onto the net and actually glean the facts from the rubbish, and how to figure out what is false news and what is not and what's really going on in the world. And if you don't know what's going on in the world, I think it's about time you inform yourself. We've always had the habit of reading the newspapers. We've always told the kids that because you don't read the newspapers, you're not informed. That's untrue. Because for them, the newspaper is the net. And they're extremely well informed, especially when it comes to whatever is important to them and whatever is important to their futures. So they're much better informed than what the newspapers are today, because even the newspapers are bought by big businesses. And therefore, all news channels on television, all newspapers that are in print, have a slant and an agenda to the reportage of the news. And therefore, if you want a choice, and if you want to know what the varying opinions are for and against, for whatever the argument might be, then you need to know both sides and form your own opinion. And when you form your own opinion, that is the opinion that actually prevails. Because you know now that you have had a choice, you've read both sides of the story, and then you formed an opinion. And that you can only do on the net. Because that stream of information is extremely, extremely huge. So you can sit there and watch the net as much as your kids do and be as well informed as they are in terms of what is going to happen, how to anticipate it, and what to do. Now, when you have a partnership between senior managers and junior employees, the greatest advantage of that is that the mentor learns much more than the mentee. It has always been so. Ever since a mentor and a mentee relationship has started in this world, the mentee learns a craft and a discipline. The mentor learns how to think young, be flexible, be anticipatory, and not be risk averse. Now, how are we going to change the model of banking and of insurance when your entire model is based on not being risk averse? But you will right now fail. So at times like this, you have to reach out to your consumer to tell him that you are with him through thick or thin. That at times are bad, that he can lean on you. You don't lean on him. You don't take advantage of him and squeeze the hell out of him to try and get business out of him. You have to give him enough latitude to be able to trust you. How does your consumer trust you? That when times are bad, you don't disappear. You don't foreclose on him. You don't squeeze him because you're being squeezed. Okay? So look at the situation in terms of the fact that who gets maximum collateral damage at bad times? Not companies. They've got a continuity. They can do it. Their bottom line is not sacrosanct. Because you believe that your bottom line is sacrosanct, that you can actually squeeze your consumer at a time that is bad because it's bad for you, it's bad for him. If you don't do that, if you reach out and turn around and communicate with him, see, communication is the single most important part of our world today. If you can reach out and communicate with them that you're there for them, that you're there to help them, to ask them what their issues and problems are, that can you defer the EMI payments? Can you defer and hold on to it? Exactly like what you're doing with your employees or would like to do with your employees. Then there is a loyalty built where they will give you, when these times are over and things get back to some kind of normalcy, it'll never be normal again, but the new order will come in. They will give you their undying loyalty, chappad phad ke, which neither advertising nor money can buy for you. Remember that. Because the most prevalent thing in today's market is fickleness of your consumer. Somebody gives him a better deal, somebody gives him a hand to reach out to, somebody turns around and helps him at times of need, and he will switch loyalties like a flash. So if you want your core group of the most important parts of your consumers, you have to reach out to them at this stage and turn around and say, we are not here to collect whatever we can because you owe us. We are here to help you. Tell us what your problem is, and we will design a repayment package or an EMI package for your benefit so that you are comfortable with whatever you're doing without being out in the street. Everybody is suffering. The individual consumer is suffering more than you are. Remember that. You are in a much more comfortable zone. You can afford to be not generous, but definitely helpful. So if you can reach out, how do you reach out to your consumer? It's only through tech. You can't meet him. You can't call him for a cocktail. You can't have a party for him. You can't have a gathering. You can only reach him on the net. You can only reach him through technology, through the digital world. But you have to be able to put your entire staff to reach out to all their portfolios, to turn around and find that one size does not fit all. And you have to start tailoring your models to the advantage and for the benefit of your consumers. If you can manage to do that today with the least effort because you're tech savvy, then you're all right. Because somebody has reached out to me as a consumer out of the blue and said, hey guys, we're a bank, you owe us so much money, there's an EMI pending, we know you are in bad times. Tell us and we'll replan your whole portfolio for you. You have got a portfolio pledged with us against a loan. The stock market has crashed, your portfolio is worth zero. We should technically sell your shares at whatever we can and you pay us the balance, which means that you are ruined. That your portfolio, which is worth whatever 1.5 to 3 crores which you pledged for a loan of 50-60 lakhs, is now worth 10 lakhs. And after selling your portfolio, you still owe the bank or the financial company 40 lakhs, which you then have to start working out how to pay them. But you're back to scratch from having built a portfolio of about 1 crore or 2 crores, which you think is going to see you through your old age and your life. How would you like to be in the same position? Always put yourself in your consumer's position. Never put yourself at advantage. Right now, all financial institutions can actually turn the screw. They can put the squeeze on. But will anybody stay with you after the crisis is over? No. They will remember that you put the squeeze on them. They will remember that you didn't reach out to them. They will remember that when times were good, you were calling them 3 times a day to reassure them. And when times were bad, all you were doing was asking them for money and asking them to pay their loans and their EMIs because you had a shortfall on your bottom line. Now, that's a radically new way of thinking for a financial institution. But trust me, financial institutions are also companies. Financial institutions also offer a service. Financial institutions also painted in colors, good guys, bad guys. Don't end up as bad guys. Because when you end up as bad guys, only the desperate, only the crooked, only the people who are out to con you will come to you for business. The average Joe who's honest, who wants to be sincere, who wants to pay back his EMIs on time, is not going to come to you because he does not trust you anymore. Because you have shafted him where it hurts most, when he's down. So, management-wise, we today are in a dilemma. How do we train our young people? We don't train our young people. They're already trained. We train our old people to start thinking young. How do old people start thinking young? Only with a partnership with young people. So we have to change the nomenclature of management to mentorship. Mentorship is a partnership between young tech-savvy people and old wise people. The old wise people have a hand on the shoulder of the young people who are all over the place to focus them, to tell them what works, what doesn't work. And young people go out there and make it work for you because you empower them. Ownership of a job, doing a job and owning a job are two different things. You allow him small decisions and you allow him small mistakes because you can correct them and it doesn't cost you too much. But when a senior manager goes through life never having made a decision in his life and now having to make a decision, he's likely to sink your company. So you have to go back to school. You have to go back to be tech savvy. It's a language. These kids have grown up with the language like Hindi, English, whatever you speak, whatever you dream in, whatever you abuse in. So if you have to think twice about translating from what you're thinking to the language of today, business, which is tech, then I'm afraid you're always at a disadvantage. You have to learn the language well enough for it to be your mother tongue. Because if you're in business today, and if you're in the service business, you cannot do without tech. You cannot tick the boxes and hope for the best. You have to be in anticipation. And I'll give you an example of a company long time ago, not now, when Enfield Bullet was dying as a company. And didn't know what to do because all the 100cc bikes had just taken over the market. And they were selling like hotcakes because there was technology that was new, the fuel consumption was less, there were sexy looking bikes and all that sort of thing. So everybody switched from scooters to motorcycles. But Bullet was taking a beating and they were about to close. And somebody new bought out the company. God knows with what idea. But he now knew that he had bought out the company and he needed to survive. So he came to an agency and he turned and said, what do we do? So we were all Bullet owners at that time, in the agency and outside the agency. And we had a certain sense of emotional connect to the bike. And we said there are a whole lot of Bullet owners out there who form a family, they form a clan, they form a tribe. Let's reach out to them and say, why is it so special to be a Bullet owner versus a 100cc owner? Firstly, it was a macho bike. Okay, it's a heavy, big bike. So we made all the models into macho men. Okay, there were cops, there were farmers, there were all kinds of people who were big. And they sat on the Bullet with great style. But they all recognized each other. They recognized each other not because of themselves, but because of the ownership of the bike. So the moment at a traffic light when you stopped and there were two Bullets out there and a whole lot of 100cc bikes, you only talk to the guys with the Bullet. Bullet guys talk to each other all the time. So we reached out to all the Bullet owners and said, you are special. And we put it to song and we said, Bullet Meri Jaan Manzilon Ka Nishan. And to date, we revived the brand and to date, people remember that song. To date, and I'm talking about 25 years ago. So there is some interest in reaching out to your consumer and saying, you are special. We are with you. You have to train your people not to squeeze people and increase the bottom line because that's what you are doing all the time. You have met your target, you have met your target. Let's sell, let's sell, let's sell. Hello, this is not the time to necessarily sell. Tomorrow is the time to sell. Today is the time to make relationships. Today is the time to reach out and hold somebody close and say, we are with you. Are you willing to do that? As companies, as financial companies, are you willing to put yourself in the place of your consumer? Are you willing to be sympathetic? Are you willing to make the right noises? Are you willing to take a moratorium on what is owed to you for 2 months, 3 months, whatever it takes? Okay? So let's go out there and do that. Because the whole world is waiting for you to do that. Come on, guys. There's an opportunity of a lifetime to build loyalty. There's an opportunity of a lifetime to build relationships. These guys are never going to leave you for generations. Because they know that at the bad times, you are there for them. Not only at the good times. So Murphy will strike you wherever, whenever you think you've ticked off boxes. All the time. And if you're not prepared for Murphy to strike, then you always get caught flat-footed. You're always screwed in the long run. So let's not look at the short run. Let's look at the long run. Now is the time to consolidate. Now is the time to retrain people. Now is the time to send your senior management to school, because that is what is necessary for the future. Now is the time to make your management young. Not because you hire younger people, but because you make the older people interact with the younger people as partners and not as mentees only. You teach young people, teach old people how to feel young, how to be young, how to behave young. Come on, guys. Let's get there. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir. Well, before we get to sessions, there are a couple of things. While you were talking about relationships, a lot of my clients just messaged me saying, see, the BFSI sector per se has to deal with more or less, two fronts. One is the distributors,
yes,
who they have to build a different sort of relationships, which till date was built on rewards. And then there's the customer front, which is built more on relationships. They all want to know how does a brand play a key part in this stage? As you once told me that when things are good, you're just promoting a brand, but when things are bad, that's when you actually build a brand. So when they talk to distributors, when they talk to customers, how exactly do they talk to both of these people?
See, when you talk to distributors, you include him as a part of your team, because the distributor is not a customer, but he's a part of you. And if he does not follow the philosophy of the company to the consumer, then how does it translate to the consumer? Because every member of the team has to be working in cohesion to worry about the end consumer at times when are bad. So the distributor has to be included as a part of the team and not just be said that, okay, you're a distributor and I know you're distributing 500 other products and that we give you the best rewards and therefore you be loyal to us and push our brand. No. You turn around and tell him that at the end of the day, we want you to be a part of our philosophy, and our philosophy right now is to reach out to the consumer and give him succor and help and not squeeze the hell out of him for what he owes you. Correct?
Yes, sir, definitely. You also that story which you told us, like when times are bad, you told me about once the Cadbury's, when they found worms in the packet. Like that was quite a drastic time for them, and how they turned it around.
No, that was a huge brand building exercise. See, Cadbury suddenly lost market share because it went out that there were worms in their packs and that the packaging was faulty. So they went back, re-corrected the packaging, but how were they going to get consumer, loyalty? How are they going to get credibility from the consumer that we have done what is due? Because a lot of companies don't. They pretend that they've done something right and say, now, ab nahi hoga. But Cadbury's got hold of a brand ambassador at that time, Mr. Bachchan, who was very particular, who turned around and said, listen, boss, I'm not doing this ad for you just for the money. I want to be first convinced that what you're making me say is true, because it's my credibility at stake, and my credibility is more than your credibility. So if my credibility is at stake, I want to know what the hell you guys have done. So first they had to prove to Mr. Bachchan that what they had done was absolutely kosher, that there was no chance of worms getting in. And only then did Mr. Bachchan get up there and turn around and reassure the market that, listen, he is taking personal responsibility for the fact that he's assuring everybody that they have done the due diligence. He has checked personally, otherwise he wouldn't be here and talking to them, because his credibility was much more important than even the brand credibility. And that worked very well for Cadbury. They were back like a flash. So was Maggie. Maggie did the same thing. But Maggie always had a very strong brand loyalty. So even, Cooks, Kukubi, I touched something, it's gone off.
I think the video. I think you just muted the pause
No,
the video.
let me get the picture back. Yeah, I think I paused the video. Yeah, sorry. That's my tech savviness coming to the fore. So I had to call my son out of his bedroom to turn around and correct it. So, this is what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, even Maggie had a huge brand loyalty. So despite the fact that the government was dishing them, despite the fact that, they were saying that there was, chemicals in it, there was this, that in it, which is carcinogenic, this, that. The moment they got a clear chit and they came back into the market, they were back to where they were. As a matter of fact, they were more than back to where they were. So when times were good, they built that relationship. So when that time was bad, their consumers stayed with them. Regardless of how much effort everybody else put in. They had lots of competition. They had competition from ITC, they had competition from Baba Ramdev, they had competition from everybody. But nobody actually disbelieved what Maggie was saying because of the relationship. So that is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that kind of bond. That after being off the shelf for 3 months and fighting desperately for survival, not to be banned, they came back with a bang.
Okay, guys, we'll be taking questions now. I just have a few. So, sir, the first one I'm going to unmute is, we have Amit Sarate from Star Union Daiichi Life Insurance.
Yes.
For everyone over here, we just did a very crazy campaign with Amit and Prahlad sir and hot stuff. The Bima Hai Zaruri campaign with Javed Jaffrey, you guys have seen it. But either way, Amit has a question, so I'm just going to unmute him. Just give me a second.
Hi Amit, how are you?
Just unmuting.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm fine, sir. We
Tell
meet
me.
again.
Yes,
Okay,
what are we doing?
Yeah, so my question is, during this DC, that is during Corona,
Yes.
you said it's not a good time to sell or to do a brand promotion.
No, it's a great time to do a brand promotion, but the brand promotion has to have a heart.
Okay. Now, during this
Okay.
time, there are a lot of insurance companies who have launched a new rider or a product,
Yes.
which is called as COVID-19. So
Right.
Is this the right time to launch and promote this product?
I don't know what did COVID-19 mean as far as the consumer benefit is concerned.
Okay,
Do
so
they cover-
this product will help you if you're infected. It will cover you for hospitalization and
Yes.
there's a death benefit.
Marvelous. So that is a benefit to the consumer. I mean, here a company has actually reached out and said, hey guys, we've got you covered. So we know that even if you get it, it won't be because you're not being careful. It's because it's inevitable. Okay, and we've got you so that your family doesn't suffer, so that you don't suffer, so that you don't have to worry about where to pay your bills and how to do it. Okay, that's a great beginning, but it's a beginning. It is not everything. You have to be much more than that. This is the most obvious low-hanging fruit. I mean, for companies to actually do this, it's obvious that this is what you would do under times of stress and try and help your consumer. What more than this are you going to do? And how are you going to actually be concerned about your consumer in terms of perception? How is his perception going to change that everybody is giving me a COVID-19 cover? So what's the difference between A company and B company?
Okay.
Thanks, Amit. We have the next question by Sanjay Manglani. Sanjay, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Sir, we always hear that, problems are opportunities.
Yes.
Whenever there is a problems, we see opportunity in it. What
Yes.
is according to you is an opportunity in the BC era and the AC era for, big companies and the small companies?
Well, small companies are much more nimble than big companies. Big companies are monoliths. The bigger you are, the harder you fall. Remember that. And you come down with a crash, like Lehman Brothers. Took half the world with them. Okay? So, always remember one thing, that when you are small, it's much easier to retrain or untrain your people, especially your young people and your old people. So if you are stuck with a whole lot of old people, put them back on school. This is the time when they've got the time to go back to school. They can learn at home. They don't have to go to class. They can actually relearn the language of technology sitting at home. And this is a huge opportunity to do so, because anyway they're all sitting at home and working from there. So instead of chantoing seniority and saying ye karo, wo karo, and ordering everybody around, hello, the least you can do is understand the language that you're talking in, so that you're far more nimble, you're far lightweight, and you're far more flexible than your competition. So you'll be absolutely ready to go by the time you reach there. And you should change the whole management nomenclature to mentorship from management. You're not managing anybody.
Yes, sir.
Well, sir, the next person I'm going to put over here is Mr. Aditya Singh, another very close friend of mine and a very crazy client of ours. We've done a lot of crazy campaigns with him. He has a question for you. So, Adi, can you hear us?
Not yet.
Adi, you want to take Adi, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Hi, Adi.
Am I audible? Hi, sir. Hi, how are
Yes,
you?
sir. I can hear you very well. Tell me.
Great. So, sorry, fanboy moment. But, sir, I have two particular questions for you. The first thing that I took away from your entire talk was, are we testing positive to be positive in such times, right? We have
Correct.
to test positive, right? And the second thing which I have to kind of, in such a time when, people have much bigger priorities in life,
Yes.
he has a scare today. How do I sell him a better future? Tomorrow, a better tomorrow. How do I sell him?
Because you don't sell him. You help him.
Exactly.
You see, when you change the whole term of selling to helping, your whole attitude changes. So when you tell yourself, I'm reaching out to help my consumer, your tone is different.
Right.
When you turn around and say, I'm going to sell him something, your tone is very different. अरे बॉस ये बहुत बढ़िया चीज है, ये खरीदे तो तेरा जिंदगी बन जाएगी. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, listen, what do you need from me? Can I tailor something for you? Can I tailor make an issue for you to secure you? Everybody is covering you for COVID-19. I am trying to go beyond COVID-19. उसके बाद क्या होने वाला है? तेरा धंधा बैठने वाला है? क्या होने वाला है? You have to do a recovery. Can I help train you? Can I help train your people? Can I give you classes? Can I reach out for you? You don't have to pay me anything for it. It's a service. As long as you are loyal to me. Because the moment business picks up, the business will come. You don't have to sell anybody anything today. You have to reach out and help them to build a relationship. This is the time to build relationships, not to sell anybody anything. You sell them whatever you want to, but it's for their benefit, not for your benefit. Eventually, their benefit is your benefit. Let's understand that. So everything that you do for them is your benefit. But you don't have to sell it to them. Right. You have to reach out to them.
So there's one question. Well, thanks Adi for that question. There is one question that a lot of my clients keep asking is that earlier there used to be a big challenge on how do you differentiate a TVC from a digital film, and now COVID era it's become how do you differentiate a TVC or digital film, and these films which will now be shot on smartphones. So how does the creative angle change in these three formats?
See, the creative angle changes because the less the production value, the lower the technology and the quality of the picture, the more creative you have to get. So if you have a great creative idea, you can get away with your cell phone stuff. If you have a shit creative idea and it's just run of the mill, then you can't afford it because you have to chumk out with a little bit of gloss and a little bit of production value, a little bit of depth, a little bit of layering. And you can't get away with it. Its life is exactly 3 views. After 3 views, you pakao your chap. He says, "Mein kya hai hi nahi kuch. Bakwas hai, quality is bad." See, you remember one thing, you are not being examined in terms of your content independently of everybody else. You're being compared constantly because you're being bombarded with so much information coming on the net because that's all you're doing now is watching television. So you're watching net television, you're watching television, you're watching movies on television, you're watching ads, whatever. So if it's got very little content, you can't afford to be cheap and cheerful. If you have very good content, you can afford to shoot on your phone. But you have to have very good technicians to do it. You can't just do it rough and ready and make it like it's a home movie. Sometimes maybe that is what you want to do. You want to tell them that this is not an ad. This is real. We shot it at home. My son has shot it. Look at it. It's all shaky. That is far more convincing sometimes than something very glossy and slick with no content. If what you are saying is important, it does not matter how you say it, what you say it as. You have to decide whether the credibility of that communication directly hits your consumer, whether he benefits from it, or whether he is just entertained by it. So at the end of the day, if he's just entertained by it, if there's no lessons to be learned from that communication, then I think it's a waste of time. You just build a brand. You're already strengthening a brand which is already there. You're not building any new relationships.
Well, thank you so much. So there are just one or two more questions. I will just have. I have a question too. I will ask you that at the end, okay, which I feel is very important, which I'd like you to share. But for now, I have Shweta. Shweta, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, Shweta, you're on.
Hello, sir. I'm a huge fan.
Yes.
My question is, so I am from a mutual fund company.
Right.
So like very much the situation in the market today, the portfolios people have wiped out all their earnings of the past 4-5 years. But at the same time, markets are at all-time low, and actual investors, I mean the involved investors, they understand this. And the whole philosophy is that we keep saying is should buy low, sell high. So technically this is the right time to buy and for people to invest. But
if they have the reserve. If they have the reserve.
Exactly. If they have the reserve. Agree. So that part I've understood. But my second thing is
the point is remember one thing, that somebody will not pledge their portfolios to you and borrow money against them if they actually had the money, to be very honest.
Yeah. No, so my question was, while we understand, yes, that markets are at an all-time low and this is the right time to invest, but at the same time, the reality that we are seeing on ground is we are facing huge redemptions also. So during this testing times, how do we convince people to stay invested with us?
By turning around and saying, listen, hey, we're not going to squeeze you. But being in communication with them and say, what do we do? Your portfolio, which was worth 1 crore, is now worth 20 lakhs. Okay, so you have borrowed 50 lakhs against it, right? So even if you sell your portfolio today for 20 lakhs, you still owe us 30 lakhs. Right? So do we sell? We will only sell with your consent and recover whatever it is. But our advice to you is this. We are financial institutions. We are seeing the market. If you have extra money, invest further. invest with us, we will invest it for you. Okay, if you don't have extra money, hang in there. Let's wait for the markets to stabilize and then we'll decide what to do. But we will take the hit for you. Are you willing to do that?
Okay.
Or are you willing to bail on them and sell their portfolios and then they are out in the street? Because then they have nothing to show and they have no loyalties for you because you've sold out the only asset that they had, which was collateral, and they still owe you money. So at the end of the day, I'll tell you what, in terms of personal feelings, that if you've sold my portfolio which is worth 1 crore and I owe you 50 lakhs and you only recovered 20 lakhs from my portfolio and I still owe you 30 lakhs, I'll turn around and say, go find a rolling donut. Because I'm not going to give you the money in a hurry. I'll give it to you as and when I can. You want to take me to court? You want to take me to jail? Fine. Do whatever your due diligence is. How many people are you going to take to court? Isn't it better? And then you get known in the market that this guy has taken his consumer to court. You think that the media is going to let it go? Today it's a very, very small world. It will be out on the net. You'll be painted as the bad guys all the time. So take a hit. It's just a question of 5 or 6 months. It's not a big deal. For 5 or 6 months, your bottom line does not have to look very good. For 5 or 6 months, you can give a bailout line to your consumers and say, we are with you guys, don't worry. We're hanging in there with you. If you take the hit, we'll take the hit with you. Can you do that? Is it feasible?
So, Shweta, I think that the question you asked was very important. As Sir also said, I'll just summarize. Basically, many of our clients have just asked this question. I think one key thing which has been recurring throughout this webinar is that I think this is the time to build credibility and everything else falls into place. I think the right
build loyalty and build relationships. And how are you going to do it if you're not on the net?
Exactly. So that's one key factor that's coming in. Either way, Shweta, thank you for your question. I have Sanjay Shukla here with me.
One sec.
Sanjay,
Shweta, one sec. Let me get back to Shweta. Shweta.
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Hi, Shweta. This is the key question for all financial institutions today. Do they bail or do they stand by? Now, it depends on your management and how much pressure there is on you people who are handling the portfolios to either bail or not bail. You have to convince your management that if you do not want to lose your clientele and start from scratch, you have to bail. And believe me, a bad reputation lasts you a lifetime. A good reputation can be ruined with one bad decision.
Thank you, sir.
well, thank you, Shweta. Sanjay, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can carry very clearly here. So can I ask my question?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you very much, sir, for first of all, for wonderful session and lot of wisdom and learning. My question to you is, in today's time when every company is trying to reach out customer using digital and trying to kind of build campaigns and communication on all possible channels, and as you rightly mentioned, customer is already bombarded by a lot of messaging from a lot of companies. What is your recommendation of not to do in marketing communication which will irritate customers? So, you have already spoken about a lot of stuff which we should do. So is there a recommendation around what not to do to kind of,
Well, don't in any way sound that you are trying to make a deal. Don't try and sell anything at this stage. If it sounds even remotely like you're trying to sell them some kind of turkey, you lose them. There should be no conditions to your reaching out. You are reaching out from human to human levels. You are reaching out like to a relative. You are reaching out saying, "आप ठीक ठाक हो? कुछ मदद चाहिए? हम आपके लिए क्या कर सकते हैं? आपका पोर्टफोलियो तो बिल्कुल बर्बाद हो गया. हम हमारे साथ पड़ा हुआ है. हम बहुत नुकसान ले रहे हैं उसके लिए, पर हम झेल रहे हैं. हम आपके लिए झेल रहे हैं." Can you have that tone? Do companies have the ability or the bandwidth to not turn around and corner their customers by saying, "ये खरीद लो, ठीक हो जाएगा"? There are no instant pills for all cures. It's a slow, hard, uphill process. And you have to be clear with them. You have to be very transparent and very honest. See, this is the time for honesty. People can make out when you are transparent and honest and when you're trying to sell them a turkey. You know, लोग इतने बहुत समझदार हो गए, बहुत पिटे हैं. पिटने से ही समझदारी आती है. तो आप उनको कुछ गोली लगाओ तो वो समझ जाएंगे कि ये गोली लगा रहे. अगर आप जेन्युइनली रीच आउट कहो कि देखो भैया आप यू आर इंपॉर्टेंट टू अस, यू आर वन ऑफ आवर गुड क्लाइंट, लेट्स बी ऑनेस्ट विद यू, दिस इज द स्थिति ये है, हमारी स्थिति ये है, आपकी स्थिति भी ये है. अब हम क्या करें? हम एक साथ डिसीजन लेंगे. हम डिसीजन यूनिलैटरली आपके लिए नहीं लेंगे. Because if you take the wrong decision for them, you lose them forever. And they will tell 500 other people what crooks you guys are. और जब वो इतने नौबत के टाइम पे अब उन स्क्वीज कर दिया उनको. So don't turn out to be bad guys. Because don't be Shylocks. Because you guys have as a community, you have the reputation for being a Shylock. So just turn the whole thing around. Stop being Shylocks.
Yeah,
Right,
well, yeah. Sanjay also faces a lot of challenges, but he's been leading a very good strategy right now with GSK.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your question,
Which company
Sanjay.
do you represent, Sanjay?
Sir, I am from GSK Pharmaceutical.
Okay.
The
You
goalie you were
guys are-
referring.
You guys are
Minutes
sitting
back.
on a gold mine, boss. Because if anything is working today, it's the pharma companies. You look at the stock market, only shares that have gone up is pharma. You know.
No, it is probably the right time to talk about. See, as such, GSK believes in patient centricity, and we keep talking. So probably I'll just strengthen that messaging, believing what you just taught and just told us.
Yes.
That,
No. Take for instance, there's this hawa about that quinine, what do you call, derivative. तुम लोग करते हो?
Hydroxychloroquine. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Are you
Hydroxychloroquine.
producing it?
No, sir, we don't.
Well,
But we
start.
produce paracetamol, which is required for fever.
No, but
See,
paracetamol also is, at the end of it, it's really a placebo. If the hawa is about this medicine, go into it. Yeah? I mean, Cipla is doing it. So today, Cipla, I'll tell you one thing, among all the reputation that I've got in the market, feedback, the one pharma company that's come out shining is Cipla. Why? What are they doing right? Versus everybody else. आप समझ सकते हो कि सिप्ला ने क्या किया होगा कि वो सब लोग सोचते हैं कि वो महान है. क्यों? आप ही बताइए. Your competition.
It's not fair on me to kind of comment on competition, sir, but I take your message.
No. I want you to tell me why they are considered mahan. Why are they considered such good guys?
So they have done a lot of good stuff, I must admit, sir. See, even earlier also, see a lot of new drugs they brought at a very affordable price. Like my
Yes.
company also does the same. GSK does the same across
Yes.
the globe. So, all these companies are doing their own bit. And I think all of us are trying to kind of do best what we can do in our own individual capacity as an organization. But I
Right.
take your point, and I think I go by what you just taught us in your session, that probably it is time not to talk about brand, more about trying to build partnership.
No.
trying
Build
to-
partnerships. That is your brand. See, don't say don't build a brand. That is brand building.
No, I'm
Who are
saying
you?
not to talk more of brand selling versus
No,
it's more
don't
of building
sell.
trust and kind of
See, when you represent somebody, you say you are GSK, na? I'm speaking from GSK. What can I do for you? So at the end of it, which brand are you building? You're building GSK, na?
Absolutely.
So people are saying, यार GSK ने इत्तेफाक से फोन किया और वो पूछ रहे थे हमें हम क्या कर सकते हैं. ये नहीं पूछ रहे थे कि ये खरीदो हमसे.
नहीं सर, वो हम कर भी रहे हैं, ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं. I mean, it's not
हाँ.
fair. See, corporate communication handled separately in GSK, so I'm not supposed to talk on what we are doing. But then GSK is doing a lot, which I'm sure you'll hear in times to come, not only nationally, even globally also. So at global level.
See, management-wise, I'll tell you something. You have to be extremely coordinated. You cannot be silos anymore. You cannot be divided into silos.
Yeah.
There is one company, one image. Every peon, every liftman in your company has to have that same mantra.
Right, sir.
एक ही मंत्र है, चाहे लिफ्टमैन हो चाहे मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर हो. They have to be in the same place. They have to have the same philosophy. अगर ये cohesiveness नहीं है, you will not build a brand because different people will be talking different languages.
Right, sir.
Yes. Sanjay, thank you so much for that question. We have another very interesting client of ours. Karan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, we have Karan Datta here, sir, from Axis, and he has a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Prahlad. You made some really fascinating points early on in the talk that you've given. I had a question more about leadership in CEO roles. What, in your opinion, is more important, IQ or EQ? Given that everyone talks about data being important, but then there is the which one would you go after in how to build out a CEO, IQ or EQ?
See, I'll tell you something. The most important thing about a CEO is one is peripheral vision, anticipation for Murphy, and compassion. And compassion overrules everything else.
Got it. So it's EQ
and
all
the
the way.
compassion starts with your own workforce and goes on to everybody else because then that becomes the company philosophy.
Super.
Okay, now I'll give you a story on this. You know, I come from a military background. I've come from 3 generations of soldiers. And I came from a military school. And all my classmates have all joined the army. And once I traveled to the forward area in Kargil and I saw this young lieutenant standing there at our outpost, you know, in freezing cold, -30, with a rifle in his hand, which was also freezing. And I asked him, I said, boss, तू और कोई नौकरी नहीं ढूंढ सकता था? Why did you have to join the army? He said, no, sir, I wanted to join the army and it was my choice. So I said, do you realize that there's a possibility that you might lose your life? So he says, of course. So I said, okay, I have a very pertinent question for you. The politicians tell me that you are giving up your life for the country. Is that true? Are you a patriot that you're giving your life for the country? He said, no. He said straight away, he says, my country doesn't know me, I don't know my country. Why should I give my life for somebody I don't know? So I said, oh. So then why are you giving your life? Why were you standing here on this bloody place, freezing your ghoulies off, ready to get shot by somebody? So he says, I would give my life. I said, are you willing to give it for your regiment, for your army, for your commanding officer? Kiske liye? He said, no, neither of them. So I said, then why are you standing here, ready to give your life? He says, to the man to the left of me and the man to the right of me. I said, but they're not even related to you, boss. It's just ittafaq that they're with us at the same post with you. He says, the reason I would give my life for them is because they would give their lives for me. Now, there's a management leadership lesson in this. You expect your employees to give their lives for you. What are you willing to give for them? Do you have the back at times that are bad? Now that times are bad, the real leaders will come out from the false ones. Because the false ones will turn around and say, we're giving you a pink slip, go home. We can't afford you. The real leaders will carry everybody with them and say, we are all going to take the hit together.
Agree.
So, if you have an employee's back when times are bad, you have him forever. When you have him forever, he passes on that compassion onto your clients. He's not doing a job. He then owns the job. Do you understand the difference?
Completely understand.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karan, for that question. It was a very insightful question. The next person, so we just have 1-2 questions left before we wrap up. Okay, this is a very sweet client of ours. We've done many campaigns with her. In fact, one of our campaigns, she's from Edelweiss Mutual Funds. And Manisha, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
yes.
Manisha. How are you?
Hi, sir. Very good, sir. How are you?
We're good. So, how are we doing at Edelweiss?
Very well, sir.
Are we singing every night to the candle, Edelweiss, from that movie?
Yes, sir. We try and do that and keep ourselves positive and pass on the same for our clients and investors, everybody.
I think you should have that as your anthem. I think everybody should learn the song.
Yeah. Okay, sir. So my question was partly answered in your previous answer to Karan.
Yes.
I'll just put it across if you could throw some more light on it. So how much does employer branding add to the brand equity for organizations, especially smaller and younger organizations, which are, which have just started, and so CEOs are usually the, brand ambassadors, and they play a very good role in that. But how much do other employees, like across the length and breadth of the organizations, contribute to employer branding?
See, they form a part of a team. If they are bound to the same philosophy of ownership rather than employership. See, there's a huge difference between companies that employ people and companies that empower people.
Yeah.
So when I said that, the management system has to change to mentorship and not to management, that is empowerment. What are you doing? You're taking a junior guy and you say, hey, you're damn good at tech. You're much better on the net than I am. So come and help me. I will give you the wisdom. Yeah. You will give me the flexibility and you will give me the non-risk averseness. You tell me what to do and we'll do it together. Okay. Now, what happens when you do that to a junior employee? You empower him, na?
Yeah.
वो तो चौड़ा हो जाता है. He thinks that, my God, my manager is taking advice from me on how to take corporate decisions. I am the job.
Yes.
I'm no longer employed. I'm not waiting for my salary. I'm proud to be a part of the team. I'm proud to be a part of the decision-making system. The whole decision-making system has to go bottom upwards, not upwards downwards. Why should decisions be restricted only to the senior managers? They're incompetent, or they're ill-informed, or they're risk-averse. The decisions have to come from bottom upwards, where you ask the juniors, okay, what should you do in times like this? And they give you 100 suggestions. You pick the best 5. And you turn around and say, this has come from our workforce. We are very proud of you guys. And we are going to implement this. And you all are going to help us do it. Because it is coming from you. Now, see the difference. In terms of corporate culture, when a guy looks at something, a PM looks at his logo of his company and say, ये मेरी company है. ये नहीं कि मैं इधर नौकरी करता हूँ. There's a huge difference between saying मेरी company है और मैं नौकरी करता हूँ. Can we change that culture? Can we change that culture from नौकरी करना to ownership?
Yes.
And it's very simple. It's not that difficult. It is just a matter of mentorship. A mentor learns more from the mentee than the mentee learns from the mentor. But the mentee gets empowered. And whatever mistakes that he makes, you can correct because they don't cost you an arm and a leg.
Yes.
But the capability to take decisions has to be implemented at a very junior level. We punish people who make decisions. We reward people who do not make decisions. It has to change.
Thanks, Manisha, for that question. It was very insightful. We have, from mutual funds, I'm going to go to a very different sector. So we have someone from Hilton over here. So, Joyjeet, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, sir.
How are you doing?
First of all, thank you. Great, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It's amazing to hear you, and thank you so much for your time. Well, sir, I've been hearing about brands. I've been hearing about mutual funds. I've been hearing about pharmaceuticals. So I am from hospitality, and I work in a capacity of a general manager for a hotel of Hilton in India.
Right.
So what do you advise for us? I mean, what is the way forward? Because we see darkness everywhere right now. So
no, see, you guys have many options today. Other than revenue. Frankly, revenue should be the last word in your vocabulary. Your vocabulary should be right now building a brand because you're doing service, public service. You guys are known for being a service industry, for keeping your consumers happy and keeping them loyal, right? For a change, open it up. Offer your place for quarantine, wards. Create kitchens. When your kitchen staff is there, create low-cost food for people who need it. Or offer your employees a certain ownership of what you want to do with the facilities available. See, your running costs are not going anywhere. Your electricity bills might come down by about 20-30% because you're not using so much air conditioning. But your staff costs, your salary costs, everything is the same. So why aren't you utilizing that capacity to actually go out there in the market and turn and say, we're willing to help in whichever way we can. Look at what Mr. Tata did. What did Mr. Tata do? He said, I'm giving whatever money from my personal fund, and there's so much money that I'm giving from my company trust. Okay? First man off the block. And he said, for my country, I will do anything. Okay? And this is for doctors, and this is for ventilators, and this is for uniforms. First, because those are the guys who are on the forefront of this fight. Same with you guys. You deliver food to doctors. They are working 24/7. You deliver food to policemen. You deliver food to people who are doing a yeoman job and being the front of our army against COVID. It's nothing short of a war. In a state of war, what would you do for our soldiers up in the front? What would you as a service industry do for them?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. I mean, the food and service is something which is our key element. So obviously,
precisely. So you call your employees or call them on the net, do a Zoom meeting with them and say, okay, हम क्या कर सकते हैं, किसके लिए कर सकते हैं? We want a joint decision on this. This is not a management decision. This is not coming from top to bottom and we are forcing you to do it. This is coming from bottom to top. किसको मदद करें? डॉक्टर्स को मदद करें, नर्सेज को मदद करें, पुलिसमैन को मदद करें, किसको मदद करें? और अगर इनमें से किसी को हो गया कुछ और अस्पताल में जगह नहीं है तो हम अपने कमरे उनको दे सकते हैं कि नहीं? Because anyway you all are empty. What are you doing with your capacity? Right?
Right, sir.
So reach out and become the good guys. यार थोड़ा दान दो यार, दिल दरिया है.
We have already started doing it in our local levels.
But I'm talking about making an announcement saying हम ये कर रहे हैं और किसी को मदद है तो हमसे पूछिए, हम आपके लिए भी करेंगे. कौन है आप दे? हमारे पास किचन है, हमारे पास राशन है, हम आपके लिए खाना बना के आपको, अगर किसी को कोई पिकअप करेगा आपकी तरफ से और ले जाएगा, we can provide food to all the policemen at the chowki so that they don't have to leave their jobs. ये कर सकते हो? All the nurses who are working 24/7 and anybody who gets infected, you turn around and tell them that हमारे होटल में आके रहो, we'll quarantine you. हमने रूम दिया है.
So we have around 125 rooms.
हाँ. And how many staff do you have?
So we have around 95 people, but right now the hotel is shut, and what we are doing is, like you rightly said, sir, we are actually on a daily basis giving out a few packets to the local police station, and they come and take it. We have given gloves, we have given water, we have given, we have made a few masks from the bed sheets and all which got spoiled. So we have made some masks for them. So this is what we have already done. This is what we are already doing at our own little capacity. Sir, thank you for what you said right now.
This is what you are doing on your own. Why can't you put it out there and say, I want suggestions? हम क्या कर सकते हैं और? हम ये कर रहे हैं so far, और क्या कर सकते हैं? First take it from your employees. First ask your employees so that when times are good, they don't jump ship because you sent them home.
Understood, sir.
Okay, get them involved in the decision making of your corporate relationships, because right now is the time to build corporate relationships.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Joyjit, for that question. See, we have many more questions and everything which I will get Sir to answer on mail. Otherwise, the session will just be endless. Well, some of you all have written over here that we can listen to the session for another 2 hours also. So I guess we'll have another session someday with Sir. That's another thing. The last question comes from me only. Is of late, whenever we've been talking to a lot of our clients, they want to do something creative. And but as you said, it's a tough pill to digest when you want to suddenly change the norms of creativity. So I'd like you to share, I'd like you to share that example which you keep telling us about Cadbury's, where they had a mind block, but the way it came in and the dancing girl changed the entire norm, and
absolutely
post that, So I'd like you to share that story with everyone who's listening right.
Well, Cadbury's was a brand where they'd never done any research. But when Piyush Pandey was working as a junior copywriter in O&M, and he wrote this script for them, and they said, no Indian girl is going to do this kind of rubbish. Ye to bilkul disconnect hai. So he turned around and said, Bhaiya, advertising is all about dreams. It's not about your reality. So if everybody is capable of dreaming, why have you stopped dreaming as a company? I mean, you're just stuck and saying we are a British company and we are international and we are this, that, not. People are not interested. Until you turn around and say chocolate instead of chocolate, why should the Indian be thinking that it's his brand? वो तो chocolate बोलता है ना, वो chocolate थोड़ी बोलता है. So you have to change your thinking from chocolate to chocolate. So he turned around and said that this is what your market share is about 5%. So they said, how do you know my market share is 5%? He said not even 5%, he said 3%. So how do you know my market share is 3%? He says, यार हमारी एक दिवाली होती है, दिवाली में हम सब लोगों को मिठाई भेजते हैं. All our loved ones are sent a basket of sweetmeats. अब you choose those sweetmeats with great care to who you are sending them to. What do you call, companies send it to their clientele and to their suppliers, and people send it to their relatives. He said, look into the basket and see how much Cadbury's you have. It's 3%. It's tokenism. You are competing against all the laddus and the barfis and all of the world. You're not competing against some other chocolate. There is no other chocolate. So they went, choo, and they'll agree to let him do it and said, we'll research it. But we won't release the film without researching it. In the middle, he changed the script also. She wasn't supposed to be dancing. He made her dance on the shoot itself. उसको नचाया क्योंकि running in was दम था पर इतना दम नहीं था. She danced wildly. They finally did 15 takes. They took the first take because that was the most spontaneous. And what it did for the brand was unbelievable. You see, every woman in this country, when they were asked, "ये तुम करोगी?" everyone said no. We don't have the guts. But by God, she lives inside us. She's the spirit that we have. हम एक दिन ऐसे होंगे, पर अभी नहीं हो सकते. So that's what advertising is really all about. It's all about dreaming. The possibility of what can be. That is advertising. Advertising is not hakikat. Hakikat, you come in the news. It's bad news all the time. So advertising is a huge relief as to what can be. And everybody can be creative. When you talk about creative solutions, it's all about storytelling. If you don't have a story to tell, and if you only have statistics, and the statistics are not 36, 24, 36, nobody's interested. Especially the men. So tell stories, guys. Learn to dream and remember your dreams. Don't be frightened of them. It's very important.